joined by my colleague, Sophie Caesar. Today, we have with us Wildflower Brands. Wildflower is developing and designing brands that focus on plant-based health and wellness products and recently acquired City Cannabis, a premier licensed cannabis retailer in British Columbia. City Cannabis just received its retail operator's license in Ontario. Wildflower is focused on adding shareholder value through its operations and positive cash flow. They trade on the CSE under the symbol SUN. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different for you. CEO William MacLean will have an informal chat with us about Wildflower Brands, and then we'll take some questions to our audience.
Hello.
Hi, William. You can go ahead and start. Thank you.
You're good to go.
Sorry about that. My connection was just a little bit unsteady. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to join me today for our brief presentation. Basically, I'm the CEO of Wildflower, and City Cannabis is a subsidiary of Wildflower. I'll just talk a little bit about how we acquired Wildflower, or City Cannabis. Essentially, we looked at the market and we analyzed it and found three major sectors in the market: the growing and cultivation, the producing and processing of the material into products and branding them, and then obviously the retail side. Our company decided to focus more on creating a brand, creating products in the wellness space, and then ultimately ventured into the retail side as we realized that would be where a lot of the early potential in the industry would be, especially being able to shape the industry and bring in a lot of the revenue and control the dollars that were coming in. So with that, about 5 years ago, we started Wildflower. And then shortly after that, about 2 or 3 years afterwards, we acquired City Cannabis. At the time, City Cannabis was the largest retailer in BC. It had the first licensed store opened in the city of Vancouver. It was the first multi-licensed retailer in British Columbia. We currently have 4 retail stores here in BC, including our flagship store on Robson Street. I'm not sure if everyone knows what the landscape is in Vancouver, but Robson and Granville would be equivalent to a Yonge Street in Toronto. So with that being said, when we looked at City Cannabis, we found some great value in the company. The company itself had been operating in the legacy market. It was one of the first licensed stores with the city of Vancouver with a business license, and City Cannabis did work closely with the city in terms of communications on how they were self-regulating and setting up the internal functions of the store, which was one of the reasons why we were one of the first licensees. City Cannabis itself was very heavily self-regulating, and that process provided a lot of key information in terms of how to function within the legal landscape. To begin with, there was a lot of competition at the time. City Cannabis opened up on Granville Street. It had 3 or 4 stores within a block radius. And so the retail model was created in an environment of high competition. And what we discovered very early on was that people were really looking for quality more than anything else. The stores that opened up right beside were selling $5 a gram product. And with that, City Cannabis really couldn't be competitive. So they went after the very, very high end cannabis strains and essentially created the $14 and $60 gram price points here in Vancouver that previous to that didn't even exist. So that being said, City Cannabis had a great transition from the legacy market into the regulated market. We do have now, like I said, 4 stores. Our retail side of the business has provided the bulk of our revenue, especially during the pandemic. Our Wildflower Wellness side, which is our product and wellness division of our company, had a significant effect during the COVID. But with cannabis being deemed an essential business here in British Columbia, we were able to stay open. We did have an initial hit but we've had continuous growth since the first month of the pandemic. So we're one of those few companies that I feel have been able to continue growing and continue moving forward during these pretty tough times. So with that being said, we were able to get a lot of things, a lot of information figured out from City Cannabis during the legacy market. We collected a lot of data. We understood the consumer's behavior, what their buying patterns were, and we were able to develop a lot of systems and processes based on that. To begin with, we were able to develop very strong training guidelines for our staff, standard operating procedures. We discovered very early on that the consumer that was coming in was a lot of the new consumers that had either left the industry or market from the past, had tried it and were returning, or were new to it. And we discovered that the best way to really staff and train these retail outlets was to find retail professionals, not necessarily cannabis professionals, and bring them in. They had the understanding of how to service clientele, and we would just train them on the cannabis side. That data also allowed us, that we collected, to really understand how to create the right store environment. Really, before we opened the stores here, the model was you'd go into a waiting room, take your turn, get a number, go into the back, buy your cannabis and leave. We created a completely different retail environment. We really wanted to go after more the everyday consumer. We knew that this would be an everyday product. So, you know, when you look at, I'm not sure if this shared screen is working or not, but hold on a second. Let's see. Does that work? Can you see the stores on screen here?
No, we can't.
Okay, hold on.
Do you click the shared screen at the bottom and then click on the image you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's not really showing me. There we go, share screen. There we go. All right. Share screen. And then here we go. So here you can see a little bit of what our design looks like from the outside. And on the interior side, what we've done is we created a retail environment that's very welcoming, very high end. It appeals to a broad consumer base. We really wanted to appeal to the new cannabis consumer and the female demo. We realized that the male demo would come regardless, but if we created a very comfortable, warm, and professional environment, that the people would come. And we made sure that our concierge or bud tenders were on the floor. They weren't behind desks all the time. Wanted to make sure that we were addressing all the different consumer behaviors. We had consumers that were coming in, they wanted to come buy some pre-rolls and leave. So we had many different ways that consumers could buy their product. They could either order it online, come pick it up at the store without even needing to deal with a concierge. They could come in with the concierge attending them and put the orders together. And then the orders would arrive at one of the 3 or 4 stations, depending on the store, where the customer could just pick it up. They could also go in and do the full purchase without even needing to speak to concierge. So these are the different things that we've been working on. One of the other unique design features that we did was one of the security features, but that's been a huge, I guess, draw for the clientele. And one of those neat little things to see is our pneumatic tubes. Essentially, we have these pneumatic tubes that push the product from our safe rooms from the back out into the front. You can see them shooting to any one of the 3 stations. So it makes being able to buy the cannabis product anywhere in the store easy, and then just going to a specific station to pick it up, and it draws attention. We will be, and one of the things that we noticed, we talked about, was our Toronto store. We'll be opening up our flagship store in Eastern Canada early next year. We've already got our retail operator's license, and we've already started construction on it. One of the unique features from that store is the safe room is actually in the basement. So you're going to have these pneumatic tubes shooting out of the ground, much like what a fountain would look like shooting out water. So kind of quite a few unique little features, but you know, the design of the store is purpose built, and it's purpose built with data. And that's one of the things that we had that no other retailer really had. So for example, we discovered in our Robson store, 40% of consumers come in and want to buy pre-rolls, and then they want to leave. So we set up a pre-roll station and an express station right near the front of the store. They could come in and get their product and leave right away, even if they've already pre-ordered it. So this data was very essential in really understanding what the consumer wants. One of the other things that we discovered in the process was it was very difficult for consumers to verbalize exactly what they were looking for in a product. And what we've identified is a serious problem in the consumer being able to express what they want, and then the cannabis retail stores to be able to provide it. A good example would be, some consumers would go out and buy cannabis strains on a regular basis, and every once in a while, maybe 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 purchases, you get that strain that just is perfect, is exactly what you're looking for, whether it's the smokability, the effects, whatever it is that you're looking for, the flavonoids in it. Really, at the end of the day, the consumer didn't know how to say, this is what I want, and then the retailers don't know how to provide it. So we've created a whole new program. We've been working on this for over a year now, which is called Citywise, which does 2 different things. We curate every single product that comes into our store. We test it through all our stores and all our buyers. We do a complete grading system. It's a very thorough, comprehensive grading system, which allows us to buy quality product. And essentially, we've been able to meet certain consumer demands based on that. So for example, we are the higher end of the retailers, but they were looking for value brands and value strains that they could buy. So what we would do is we use Citywise to identify products that don't quite meet our quality control standards. And so we just want to get rid of them. But the difference is we're speaking that conversation to the consumer and saying, this didn't really meet our quality control standards, therefore we're just liquidating it. It's a sharp price point, and that's the draw for the consumer. But inevitably, they always get the higher price strains as well. But that provides us the ability to provide a full spectrum of price points for the consumer and carry and curate the highest quality. So, consumers are okay paying more for their product, but you got to make sure you're giving them value for that. The second thing that Citywise does is what I mentioned before. It allows us to communicate better with the consumer. We are going to change the way people talk about cannabis, the way people ask for cannabis, and what they're looking for in the cannabis. So at the end of the day, if they can't go into a store and say, I need a product that is smooth at this level, that has such and such flavonoids, that has this effect, but to know exactly what they're going to get when they ask for it, if they're not going to be able to do that at another store, that's going to drive more and more clients to us. So that's something that we're in the process of launching as well. And again, very, very heavily data-based. As I mentioned earlier as well, we are now launching into the Ontario market. We're very excited about that. With a simple addition of 3 to 4 stores, we will more than double our revenues once those are open. The first is scheduled to open early next year, and we've already got the second one approved as well. And we are looking at 3 or 4 here in BC, as well as a couple in Ontario. So there's definitely a lot of upside in the retail market. We see that's really the low-hanging fruit right now. The other thing, if you look at our stores, our model is a little bit different. We didn't go out like some of the cannabis companies and just get every single store we could possibly get. We were very picky about the type of stores that we went into or the locations. Our model is one where we want to go where it's high traffic. We'll pay a little bit more for the retail space that we attribute to just marketing dollars. But if you look at our 4 stores, there's, I'm not going to name names, but there's a company out there that's got over 50 retail stores, and our 4 stores, they do more than 25% of their revenue. So you can see that we're, a little bit higher traffic, a little bit higher revenue per store. And that's, that really comes down to, again, some of these things that we're talking about in terms of design, feature, and the services that we're providing our client, but mostly our model of being in densely populated, high traffic areas. So that's really what we have going on with City Cannabis side. Also, we have a consumer package division, which does the wellness side, which we also see having a lot of potential coming in the near future. We've recently announced a launch into Canada with Rubicon Organics for Wildflower Wellness products, mainly to fill a gap in the market for topicals. Our primary product and anchor product for Wildflower Wellness was a topical product. It's been in the Grammy gift bags. We've been at Kim Kardashian's baby shower. Kate Hudson has stated that the Cool Stick, which is our topical, is her favorite CBD product. So we've had a lot of success with that. We've been in hundreds and hundreds of stores. I believe we at our peak pre-COVID, we were in over 800 retail stores. Obviously, that's been affected during COVID. And the upside really is our new store, our new markets that we're launching into. So we are launching into new European markets and Asian markets. You're going to see some news flow over the next short term on some of that progression and some of the exciting stuff that's happening with that, including increased revenues associated with that. So that in a nutshell is Wildflower and City Cannabis. You know, if you have a look at our sites, you can see some of the different things we're doing. We're partnering with some of the brands. We're doing unique things in the store, creating marketing space. But if you look at the slide right now, one of the unique things we're doing is some of our premium brands and our premium partners. We do little displays that magnify the cannabis itself, and you can see them right down to the trichome. It's a very unique thing happened when we did this the first time with Bear Organics. We noticed a huge increase in their sales, not on just the strain that we were highlighting, but right across on the brand, right across the board. So, you know, we continue to do quite a few unique little marketing things inside the store that bring traffic, and we're seeing definitely what we do in the store affects consumer behavior. We also break up our store to have edible section. We have, like I said, express pre-roll sections. You know, we make buying and consuming in our stores very simple and easy, and we try to bring a lot of attractive features for everybody to come in. So that in a nutshell is who we are, and you know, I welcome any sort of questions or anything else for anyone that wants to chime in.
Excellent. Thank you so much, William. The stores are absolutely phenomenal. They look great. We have quite a few questions.
Yeah.
So excuse me if they're a little bit all over the board, but let's
Not a
get
problem.
started.
Okay.
One of them was actually about the cooling stick.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned that, you know, there's a lot of publicity behind it and a lot of celebrities are using it, but
Yeah.
what makes it so unique?
That cooling stick took over 3 years of product development, and this goes back to what the benefit of having access to retail stores and clients does for you. When we were developing this product, it was one of the products that was highlighted during the legacy part of City Cannabis's existence. So we had access to 10 to 15,000 consumers. It wasn't a Wildflower branded product. It was just a topical that we were working on. And essentially the input and the reiterations of that product that we had, it changed a lot. You know, we probably had 15 different versions of this product, but the input was valuable. Consumers would say, you know, the smell isn't that good, or it's too soft, it melts in the car, or it stains my clothes, or you know, it has this effect or that effect. And really, that product was a very unique product. We found it here in British Columbia. We had hundreds of legacy stores open pre-legalization. So we were able to go and buy every product on the market and start curating it. And I came across a product that was developed by a single mom. She had a family that was allergic to chemicals. So she was forced to make their soaps, their detergents, their creams, everything at home, and including this topical that she developed. And it didn't have any cannabis at first. And it wasn't until her daughter introduced it to her soccer team, and when the soccer dad said, "Hey, have you thought of putting cannabis oil in this?" and there was the product that was originally born. But then we brought in doctors and scientists and biochemists and everything else, and we started, that was the starting point of the product. But really, I don't think you're going to find another CBD product, especially the cooling stick, that has had more R&D and more consumer feedback than the cooling stick. So that's what really makes it stand out. And when we test it against the other topicals on the market, including products that aren't cannabis related, our topical tested through the roof. Our consumers absolutely love it, and it's really the reason we've had success with Wildflower. It was our pillar product. It was our flagship product.
Excellent. I need to get myself one. So let's talk a little bit about City and do you plan at some point to be national? So besides Ontario, do you plan on going national? And are there any plans I know the US is a little bit trickier, but the US or Europe?
Yeah, when we looked at the market here in Canada, we said there's a couple ways to do it. We can go out and get as many of these locations as possible and go into every single market as possible. But really, to have success, you have to have focus and you have to really understand the market that you're in. And we identified the two largest markets in Canada being Ontario and British Columbia. If we had success and we were strong players in these two markets, going national would be a lot easier. It would be the fuel for the rocket, essentially. I spoke to too many dispensary owners that were losing money, breaking even, or barely making enough to have a salary. And this was before all the regulations. So this perception of all you got to do is open the store and the cash is going to come in is absolutely not true. It does not happen. We have been profitable every single location we've opened. We have been profitable from day one at every single location we've opened. And when we look at our model and look at it compared to some of the other retailers out there, we feel like this focus is gonna serve us well. We don't have stores that are burning capital, that are eating into our cash flow or anything. All of them contribute to it. So to answer your question, yes, we will be eventually national. Other markets outside of Canada, I'm not so certain yet. For us, I've broken the market up into two markets: the consumer packaged goods sector and the retail sector. I feel like the short-term gain and the low-hanging fruit is definitely the retail sector. But if you look at CBD, the nutraceutical industry did $260 billion last year. So if you want to see where the upside really is, I really feel like we have a really strong 1-2 punch where, we're getting the low-hanging fruit in the retail stores available here in Canada now. But in the long term, these distribution deals where we're going into department store chains, pharmacy chains, we're going into new markets, into Europe, into Asia, where CBD is just starting to become popular. I think the upside on that side of the market is going to be huge as well. So I think you're going to see a short-term focus on the Canadian retail landscape. And the only way we would move into another retail landscape is if we could do it in a very focused manner. So, I'm not going to open up a store in Washington, one in New York, and one in Florida, and one in California. I mean, that wouldn't make any sense at all, especially with all of them having such crazy regulations associated with them.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the financials. We have a couple of those questions. Can you talk about 2019 revenue versus 2020, and what are your gross margins?
Our gross margins are hovering around 35%, 33% in that range. In terms of revenue, we've done for the first 3 quarters just over 17 million. Compared to last year, which I believe we only did about 7 million. And so we still have 1 quarter of revenues to report. So, the writing's on the wall. It's going to be over 20 million in revenues for the year. Like I stated before, 3, maybe 4 stores, we're going to more than double our revenue. We've already got the first 2 secured in terms of locations secured, approvals well on their way, and everything else. So, and then here in BC, we're also looking at a few opportunities. So in terms of revenue projections, I can easily see us doubling our revenues and more, depending on if any of these major distribution deals that we're working on really hits home.
Oh, excellent. What's the cash burn like, and do you foresee yourselves going back to the market for another raise?
That, I struggle with that question all the time.
Yeah,
And,
it's a tough one.
you know, it's one of those things that we wouldn't have to do any raises if we just sat there and brought and let the money come in and stayed with one location or two locations or anything like that. Really, when there's growth potential, you have to look at the possibility of maybe bringing in capital. And then that capital comes down to, are we going to do, is it going to be equity? Is it going to be debt? And if and when are we going to do those things based on those opportunities? So, I do see us at some point continuing our growth and needing some capital injection to do that. But the difference is we're not losing money. We're not one of those companies that's going backwards and,
Yeah.
and has an unsustainable business model. Our business model right now is sustainable, and with the right moves, there's a lot of growth potential.
Okay. So there's a question here regarding trading. So you trade fairly inexpensively. What are the
Mhm.
catalysts that you feel are going to propel the value of the company over the next 6 months?
We have a whole bunch of news flow that's going to be coming out in the near term, and this is a result of us of about a year's worth of work that was either about to come together earlier on and was delayed because of the pandemic, or that we were allowed to work through to get to the point where we're at during that time as well. So, there was a lot of radio silence for the last year. There wasn't a lot to talk about. But now, we've hired some more PR firms to work with us, and we are going to be talking a lot about our company and really telling the story and the narrative of what we're doing and the success we're having. Because at this point, we really haven't been out there beating the drums a lot, and our model has not been to be out there and pump our company, throw huge marketing dollars out there like a lot of the other companies have.
Yeah.
When we had a dollar, we had a choice to say, what do we do with this dollar? Do we market with this dollar, or do we invest it and open another store or grow the business? And really, we've been using that capital to grow the business as opposed to really getting out there. But like I said, now is the time for us to start telling the narrative, because we have so much going on. We have so many amazing things in the pipeline that we want to tell our investor base and the market as a whole. So really, the catalyst is going to be our communications to the public and a lot of the news flow that we have.
That's
And
excellent. That's a
obviously,
great strategy
new
to
revenue
just
streams.
wait for it. Yeah. So again, one on the share price, obviously. What's your view on the share price being sub 20 cents versus its all-time high? Do you think it'll ever, I mean, this is an impossible question. I know everyone always gets asked it, but do you feel that you're going to hit that all-time high mark again?
Of course, I feel that way. Why wouldn't I? I have a very simple saying, and my investors keep asking me, why are we trading, one times or under one time revenue when so many other industry and businesses are trading at much higher multiples, and really, my answer to that is much like Kevin Costner said: build it and they will come. Uh, we just keep
Field of
building
Dreams, love it.
yeah, it took us, I think it took us 2 or 3 years to make our first $100,000 in revenue. And then the following year, we did $1 million in revenue. And then the year after that, we did $7 million in revenue. And this year, we're going to break $20 million. And still people don't know about us. But I tell you something, we are going to hit a number at one point. Hit that number, people are finally going to see our stock and they're going to go, I can't believe I didn't buy this company at 15 cents or at 20
Yeah.
cents. So
That happens quite a bit. So that our audience should take note of that. So let's go back to this one. Someone mentioned that they saw a new PowerPoint that your team had created, and basically every person that walked into City Cannabis purchased something. Can you talk about repeat business?
yeah, like that's all key for us. When we first opened, or when City Cannabis first opened its first store on Granville Street, I have a very unique story where the landlord owned a few units all next to each other, and city opened a store, and then the very next month they leased out the next store to another cannabis company. And then there was one across the street, and then there was one around the corner. So it was a very competitive landscape. And so we've been able to learn from all that process and being competitive. We're not afraid to go into a market and compete with an operator or another store. And really it comes down to providing the consumer exactly what it is that they want. And what they want is they want to buy cannabis that they consume ultimately. You go in there and you buy cannabis, and the cannabis is too harsh and you can't smoke it, or the flavor is bad, or it creates an effect that you don't want. It annoys you. It's not what you want, right? So when you can go in there and you might pay 10 or 15% more, but you're going to get exactly what you want, and you're going to get the service, and the concierges are going to talk to you and explain to you all about the products, because we've trained them. They've gone through a very, very thorough training program. They have a licensing program here in BC that you have to complete to be able to even sell cannabis, which pales in comparison to our training program. Like literally is 5% of our training program, maybe less. And so, we've really taken the customer service, the design, the data, and been able to provide the consumer really something that they're looking for, and not just one demo, a very broad demographic. And at the end of the day, the new consumers coming in, the potential isn't in the existing consumers. The potential is in the 60-70% of the population that didn't consume before. And so that's who we're really catering to. Not the ones that want $5 a gram. They want the most THC for the least amount of dollars. No, the one that wants a specific type of product. It's equivalent to going in and buying a cheap wine or cheap beer. That's not us. We're not going to be that company. We're going to be the one that provides the next level of service, and we're going to spend a lot of time, money, resources curating the product so that they get the highest quality. So we're in that scenario where the LPs are really coming to us, and they're everybody wants to be on Robson and Granville in Western Canada. It's the #1 location. And so we're going to recreate that in Toronto at Yonge Street. Our Yonge Street location is right at the edge of the financial district, the shopping district, the tourist district. It's at the entrance to a subway and a train station. If you're going to walk to the sports arenas, you're going to walk by it. It had 70 to 100,000 people walking right in front of the store daily. And so, that again fits in our model, but it's really the net, looking at what the consumer wants and taking that data from being in operations years and years that has given us the edge over our competitors.
That's fantastic. Okay, so we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. So I'll finish off with this one before handing it off to Paul. What's your ultimate exit strategy, considering that management and insiders own around 50% of the stock? When would you be a seller of the stock, or do you believe that you guys will be acquired one day? And again, that great question that I have to ask you to speculate on, at what price do you think you would be acquired at?
You asked so many questions there in that one little brief snippet. When I looked at this, and this goes back to your previous question, what are you going to hit your previous stock high? Our previous high is $2.94, and I'd like to tell you, we own more than 50% of the stock with our management and insider. There is not a very big float associated with the company. I'm at about 24 million shares myself, and then when you start looking at our directors, our families, our close friends. On both sides, I was very close friends with the CEO of City Cannabis ahead of time too, and so there are some cross in terms of investors and families and whatnot that have invested in both companies. So when you look at it, the float's much smaller than you think it is. I do think that we're gonna get back to those levels and more. But in terms of exit strategy, we're at the starting line still. So for me, exit strategy is
long off.
Yeah, it's long off. I want to build it first. And I still haven't built it. There are so many incredible, amazing things that we're working on behind the scenes that you're going to see in a year from now. You know, if you look at things like our pneumatic tubes, our in-store design, our city-wise, our training, our center operating procedures, the way we design stores, everything else. If you look at the retail sector, we are now seeing all our competitors start to copy us. And, you know, we take that as a positive sign, but ultimately they're a year behind us. You're seeing now, we had already planned a year or further back. And so when they finally start, you know, copying us and doing more and more, you know, we're going to be bringing way more things into the pipeline and some very unique consumer experiences.
Great. Paul, do you want to
Just a
ask William
couple
a
of
question?
quick questions.
Oh, just one. We just have time for one question.
For one?
Yeah.
It's going to be two. Are you in any government dispensaries?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you mean Wildflower? No, Wildflower will be launching in January, December, January. So not as of yet. We were asked by dozens of companies to launch Wildflower. Dozens of LPs approached us wanting Wildflower for the Canadian market. We were extremely picky on who we partnered up with. It wasn't until Rubicon approached us, an organic grower from here in BC. But we will be launching into all the stores, including government stores. We had great responses from government buyers when they were exposed to the Wildflower brand and products.
And the last question is, could you expand into the psychedelic market, or is that a completely different licensing agreement and everything else?
For me, it comes down to focus. You know, how can you be successful if you keep focusing on different things? For us, you know, I saw a strategic correlation between retail and product development, because you could use access to the consumers to do that. You could hear the consumers and what they wanted, and then you can, you know, obviously design products and launch them into the market based on that. You know, that's as broad of a focus I want to have. I don't want to go outside the cannabis sector into psychedelics or anything else. We're really strongly retail focused right now, and our consumer goods focus is a little bit longer, a longer play for us.
Well, William, thank you so much for today. Very much appreciated. We have quite a few questions that we could still ask. Maybe we can get back to you and do a little mini recording, and we can put it out on YouTube or something.
That'd be great. I'm available and willing.
All right. Thanks for the time. Thank you to everybody for logging in today. Everybody be safe, be careful, be well.
Thanks, Sophie and Paul. Appreciate it. And everyone else out there for your time. Bye for now.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.